Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm usually not into emo girls whatsoever. Apparently, to every emo girl out there, there's never enough black eyeliner and black nails to go around. But this one emo girl that was in my school, I'm not gonna lie, she had something unique about her, which you guys are definitely gonna want to hear about. But yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but also really weird story. Now, today's story all takes place back in my high school years, and I remember back when I was in high school, I had a PE class. PE was physical education, where you guys can basically learn how to, I guess run, jog, play sports, do anything other than sit down and play video games like I do every day of my life. But I remember there was one time where I entered inside my PE class and there was a girl that was in my class that no one liked. I'm not joking, no one liked her whatsoever. She was annoying, she was weird, she was always awkward, and no one liked her in general for some reason. And then out of nowhere, I remember a PE teacher that day decided to make us have a new unit called badminton. Badminton's a sport that no one likes. If you play badminton, comment down below so I can make fun of you. And I remember the teacher had to pair us all up to play badminton together, and that's when I got paired up with this girl that was the emo girl in our school. Now, for some reason, she never liked being called emo, even though she clearly was emo. And when I got paired up with her, I remember I had to walk up to her and I looked at her sitting down with her skull candy headphones, wearing all black, black nails, black everything, to be honest with you, except her skin. And that's when I looked at her and said, so, are we gonna actually play badminton today, or are you just gonna sit there? I'm just curious. And that's when I realized this girl just ended up ignoring me and just kept listening to her music. And that's when I ended up tapping her on the shoulder and I said, yo, you good? What do you want, Bubba? Like, what's your problem? I'm asking you if we're actually gonna, do anything for this unit, or if you just want to sit down and do nothing. It's fine. We don't have to do it. It's just dumb anyway. Like, what's the point of hitting balls with sticks? I don't know. It's a sport. Whatever, is what she says. And one thing about her that I realized is that she never really gave a care for anything in this world. Like, no joke. If, let's say, her parents died, I doubt she would even care. At least so what it seemed. But instead of arguing with her and making things worse between me and her, since she is literally my badminton partner for this unit, I decided to take the nice approach and decide to ask her, okay, so what you listening to? It's this really rare band called My Chemical Romance. You wouldn't understand. And when she said My Chemical Romance, I knew the band, actually, funny enough, at that time, and I think I knew them for a cover of their rock songs. I didn't really listen to it that much, since the only music artists I listened to back then was Drake and John Bellion. But other than that, I remember I looked at her saying, oh yeah, I know that band. And right as I say that, I remember this girl turns her head so quickly and says, oh, do you actually know them, or do you just know them for their music? Because I know all of them personally to a close level, and I've been listening to them for since the beginning. Oh really? Wait, you know them personally? Not really, but I listen to them and I feel the music. Oh, okay. Cool. No, I don't know them personally, but I know a couple of their songs. Oh my goodness, I know all of them by heart, and and honestly, I've been listening to them for years. When she said that, it was pretty clear she was passionate about this band. I'm gonna be brutally honest, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know as much as she did. So that's when I decided once again to change up the topic. But by the time I actually had an idea in my mind to change it up to, that's when me and her decided to walk out of the gymnasium since the bell rang. As we walked out, I really regretted that day not doing anything, knowing that my PE class mark was gonna go down just because of an emo girl that didn't want to do anything. But at the same time, the teacher kind of would understand, I guess, since the last partner she had got an A and she didn't. So I guess I was gonna get an A either way, so I wasn't thinking too much about it. But then that's when the next day ends up happening, where I remember I ended up entering school, and it was 2 classes before my PE class started, and I saw this emo girl sitting in the hallway, once again just on the ground by the lockers. And that's when I decided to walk up to her and I said, hey, so is there a point of going to PE class today? Because if not, you could just skip and I can get a different partner. Oh yeah, I'm not allowed to skip anymore. I'll get in serious trouble. Okay. Cool. So you're not going to? And right as I was waiting for her to respond, I remember I ended up seeing a girl that looked really hot walk by me, and she was wearing this pink top, and I ended up kind of looking at her and checking her out as this girl was about to give me a response. But instead of responding to what I asked her, she ended up saying, oh, so you're into the preppy type, aren't you? The preppy type? Why is she a preppy? Oh, because she's wearing a pink top. At that moment, I looked at her and I'm like, wait, so you're telling me unless you're wearing the color black, you're a preppy person? For everyone watching right now, if you're not wearing a black black top like I am, you're a preppy child. Yeah, I don't really know what that logic is, but to be honest with you, it kind of seemed dumb. But at the same time, this whole emo concept in my mind is also dumb. So going on with the story, I remember after that moment, me and her, we ended up spreading apart, and she actually ended up skipping class, which was nice of her, and I decided to do the unit with someone else. But after the next couple weeks after the badminton unit, and when we switched over to our swim unit, that's when I got to see all the glory under the emo girl's blackness. Wait, blackness. Is that racist? Editor, is that racist, Tommy? Is that okay to leave in? You know what? Never mind. Going on. So I remember from there, one thing led to another. And I entered inside my PE class. And when I did, I ended up realizing that we ended up having a new unit that was swimming. I love swimming. At least back then I did. Nowadays, I don't do it that often, which I really wish I did. But swimming's actually a really fun unit that I was really excited for. But the one person that wasn't excited for it was this emo girl. But surprisingly enough, the day when we actually ended up going to the swimming pool that we had at our school, she ended up actually showing up with her swimsuit on. She had a swimsuit where she was wearing like this bikini that had like skulls on it, and all we had to do for the swim unit was just do a couple laps and then go chill by the hot tub. So I remember I would do my laps super quickly, and I would end up going to the hot tub where she was sitting at. I ended up sitting right next to her, and when I saw her in that bikini with the skull bikini, no joke, I got bricked. She was so hot, and no joke, like she had cherries, bro. Like she was so hot under all that heavy sweater black garbage that she would always wear. Once again, not being racist, I'm talking about her clothing. Going on though, I remember it was super funny because like I would always like kind of like try to sit next to her, and I guess in a way also flirt with her. And it got to the point where this girl definitely knew I was flirting with her, and she actually ended up giving me her number. No joke, she gave me her number, and that same day I literally messaged her, yo, I got us tickets to like the new horror movie. Do you want to like go see it? Oh, I didn't know you watched horror movies. Yeah, sure. Let's go see it. And me and this girl, I ended up actually going out with her, and I picked her up with my car, and we drove over to the theater. And once we got there, we ended up watching the horror movie. Obviously, I don't like watching horror movies. The only reason I watched it was because of her, because I knew she probably wanted to see something dark and gloomy, like her entire personality and life. But to be honest, anything for those cherries, man. So I ended up basically taking her to the movie. We watched it, and then after we finished watching the movie, I ended up going back to my car, and that's when she said, I would invite you back into my place, but like we can't. So do you want to like go to the woods? Yeah, sure, is what I said. Super confused on why. And then once we got a place where it was like in the woods, since like my city's full of woods, if you guys don't know, there was like a moment where we walked inside there, and I was actually terrified. But then this girl came close to me and started cuddling me in the woods. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, we ended up doing the devil's tango right then and there. It was kind of weird, actually, the more I think about it. But at the same time, like, I don't know, it's kind of funny realizing that she had a tattoo on her. You know what, I can't say that, YouTube monetization reasons. But other than that, guys, that is basically it. Now, when I was a kid, I always was afraid of graveyards until I realized that the one time I actually went to a graveyard, the only thing rising from the dead was my eggplant. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but super embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back, actually funny enough, in my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, as you guys may know, and I always say this in like every single video I've ever done on this channel, I was a major player, one of the biggest players in all of my high school. I know that sounds really weird, but at the same time, I went to 3 different high schools. So I guess you can say in my entire school district, my eggplant has been in more women than your mom has ever seen. Okay, wait, that sounds really bad. Let me rephrase that, but actually, never mind. Let's just get into the story. So I remember during my grade 11 year, me being a player and all, I remember I actually ended up going into my PE class. I took physical ed because obviously one of my main goals back when I was younger was to be jacked. Obviously, I was really skinny back then. If anything, I think I graduated high school weighing like 125 pounds, which is super insane, by the way. But also on top of that, like I never really ate as much because I was always scared of getting fat. But with this fear of being fat, I took physical education to kind of learn ways to like be more healthy. And when I entered inside my PE class, I ended up realizing that there was a new student that ended up joining in. Now, this new student wasn't any ordinary student. To be honest with you, this student actually kind of looked kind of weird. What do I mean by this? Well, I think we all know those like typical goth girls that like, you know, have black hair, wear usually all black, and on top of that, kind of just look entirely emo. I never really understood why people like this existed in the first place. I always blame the rock scene for this kind of reason, but at the same time, I don't really know. I guess you could say it's like a new nonchalant way, and it defines some sort of aura for these goth people, even though in my opinion it's all really weird in the first place. But not only just that, I remember when I saw her, I ended up like seeing her, and during PE, as we were all like playing games and, you know, being active and stuff, what this girl would do would sit in the end of the gymnasium in the very corner corner of it, and she would start basically drawing on herself. I don't know why, but she would always carry this Sharpie as if she wanted to be like a tattoo artist of some sort, and she would always draw on herself like the most weirdest thing. Like, I remember one day I ended up seeing on her leg like a giant, and I mean a massive picture of a skull. Really weird, kind of creepy, but at the same time, once again, people like this for some reason exist. I don't know why. My opinion, don't draw yourself a Sharpie. Hell, it's not even healthy to do that, I don't think. So just don't draw yourself in general. If you want to draw on something, draw on a piece of paper like normal artists would. Anyways, though, I remember when I saw her during my PE class sitting in the corner, our teacher was pairing us up to do tennis. And me, I never really liked tennis. I always thought it was a really weird sport. Comment down below what sport you guys play. But I remember I ended up basically getting paired up with her during tennis. And when I saw my teacher pairing me up with her, I was like, dude, you're joking, right? Oh, Bubba, just give her a chance. Come on, she's in the corner. Just make her be active a little bit. Come on, you got that power in you, don't you? I mean, sure, I guess. Perfect. Just try to relate to her and get her active. Come on. So I remember I ended up basically like, you know, going up to this girl in the corner, and I looked at her and I'm like, hey, I brought you your tennis racket. Oh. Thanks. What do you want? Oh, well, I mean, we got paired up, so do you want to maybe play tennis? Honestly, like, I'm kind of like meditating right now and like talking to the spirits, so like, no thanks. Oh, okay. Cool, I guess, is what I said to her really awkwardly because I didn't really know what to say after that. Like, she was talking to spirits and meditating in the corner of our school gym. Like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, what am I supposed to go down there and just start meditating with her in PE class? I don't know. I was really weirded out, and it got to the point where I ended up just walking up to my teacher, totally giving up. But then my teacher once again said, make her active or you're not passing this class. Come on, just do something. At that moment, I walked up to this girl once again, and I was like, yo, listen, you're gonna cost me my PE class. Can you please just stand up and just like, you know, just hit the racket a couple times? Like, it's nothing that crazy. I sense a really angry aura around you. What? Are you good? Is what I said to her, totally like annoyed at her. And it got to the point where I got so mad that I ended up just actually leaving class. At that moment, I knew that I was gonna fail no matter what. So when I left the classroom, I remember I ended up just going to the cafeteria and sitting down, waiting for lunch to happen, because on that day specifically, it was mac and cheese day, and I love mac and cheese. It's one of my favorite foods to ever eat in the entire world. So as I'm sitting in the school cafeteria scrolling through TikTok on my phone, out of nowhere I ended up seeing someone sit in front of me, and it was the girl from my PE class. I look at her and I'm like, oh great, so now you want to eat with me as you make me fail class. What do you want? Baba, just give me your hand. She ends up grabbing my hand and she's like, I sense a bright future for you. Something you've always wanted. And at that time, I didn't really know why she was trying to read my hand, but also I didn't know what she meant by, you know, what I wanted for my future. At that time in grade 11, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I'm gonna be brutally honest, I did not expect for me to become a YouTuber and make videos about me doing women. Like, it's one of the most weirdest things, but at the same time, I guess it all, you know, adds up eventually, kinda. No? Okay. Anyways, like I was saying, from there, I remember things got really awkward as she was reading my hand, and I look at her and I'm like, okay, listen, I don't know what you're trying to do, but like, you already helped me fail my class. Like, what do you want? Honestly, Bubba, I think like you need to like really just learn to chillax. Oh, and you can show me how to chillax. Yeah, like I can show you how to relax a bit more and, you know, be a better person. Be a better person. You're the one drawing on yourself with Sharpie and you're telling me how to be a better person. Yeah, I don't know. After that conversation, it got really awkward to the point where I stood up because the bell rang for lunch once and for all, and I went straight to the cafeteria store to get my food. But I remember once I got my food, this emo girl started following me around the school very awkwardly and obviously. And by that, I mean like, no joke, it got to the point where one of my IRL friends ended up walking up to me being like, yo, Bubba, why is that girl following you? And I realized that it was still her, and I got so annoyed to the point where I basically walked up to her and I'm like, yo, listen, you need to like not follow me because it's getting weird. Bubba, I like sense this like aura between us. Wait, what do you mean aura? Like, I sense this aura that like me and you are like meant to be connected in some way, but I don't know if it's real. Okay, well, honestly, like, what do I gotta do to just get you off my back is what I asked her. And that's when she told me after school to meet up with her at the front of the school. I didn't know why, but I was like, sure, whatever. And I remember as the school day went on, she would still follow me, but not as crazily. And even got to the point where she followed me on Instagram, which is super weird. And by the way, for people watching this video, do not stalk my Instagram followers. You're not gonna find the girls I tell in this story, bro. You're not finding anything. Anyways, I remember the end of the school day finally came, and I ended up standing in front of my school waiting for her. It took her like 20 minutes to come over, her and finally get ready, but she ended up coming up with her tote bag, or like a bag that like was kind of like a purse. And she walks up to me and she's like, okay, Bubba, let's go. And me and her, we start basically going inside my car, and she ended up putting the GPS on my car to a certain place she wanted to go to. I didn't know where she searched up, and when I ended up looking on the map, it looked like we were just going to a basic field. So I thought, oh, maybe this girl just wants to, you know, meditate on a field. So as we drive down there, I start realizing we passed through a church, and here's a fun fact: most churches have a graveyard nearby. So we ended up going to this field, and I parked my car, and I ended up seeing like a lot of graves around, and I look at this girl and I'm like, what are we doing here? Bubba, just follow me. Me and her, we end up sitting between like a bunch of graves that are like close together, and she starts like basically putting her hands up, meditating. I don't really know why, but I sat next to her and I'm like, so what are we supposed to do here? I'm trying to see if there's an aura, but I can't feel anything. Here, let me take off my hoodie. I remember this girl ends up taking off her hoodie, and I instantly got bricked. You guys are probably wondering, whoa, that's a weird turn. What do you mean you got bricked? And I realized that this girl, even though she wore the most baggiest black clothing ever, she had a nice pair of racks, okay? She had a nice pair of cherries that I've ever seen. So I'm looking at this girl's cherries and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And one thing leads to another. Me and this girl, it gets kind of intense because I end up getting bricked, and I end up kind of like playing along with what this girl was saying, because I started getting a form of attraction for her. And like I said, in high school, grade 11, I was a major player, okay? So like, don't judge me on this one. I know you guys are typing down in the comments judging me, but just understand, I wasn't thinking anything better, okay? She starts basically sitting back down, and she's like, I'm starting to feel a presence coming in. I feel it all now. And one thing leads to another. I go along with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I also feel that presence. I think it wants us to do the Devil's Tango. She ends up looking at me super weird, but then she's like, do you seriously feel that aura? Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. It wants us to be more connected. And that's when she ends up smiling, and me and her, I'm not gonna lie, we literally did the Devil's Tango at the graveyard. Really insane. Never gonna do it again, and rest in peace to those people that we were doing it on top of. Does that sound normal? I don't really know, but anyways, yeah, we end up doing it, and one thing leads to another. We end up seeing one of the pastors come out of the church that was nearby, and he walks over the graveyard and sees me and this girl doing the Devil's Tango, and he starts freaking out, saying that he's gonna call security. And yeah, me and this girl, we end up getting up. We actually ends up running away from there, and I don't know, apparently the next day when I saw her at school, she had a weird dream about me becoming like some sort of like bad influence towards people, and she told me to stay away from her. Wasn't my choice, but hey, she was down. I don't really know. I don't really know what to say from there. But that girl was freaky. And you know what's funny? Still to this day, she still is kind of the same way. I don't know. Would you guys ever do it in the graveyard? Okay, so before I get into this story, I just want to say that I apologize for anyone that finds this disrespectful. But at the same time, you gotta understand, when I have the opportunity to do the Devil's Tango, I'm taking it, no matter where I am. If you guys are big fans of the channel and you guys watch these videos consistently, you guys would know that I would literally do it anywhere. By anywhere, I mean anywhere. So before I get into the story, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And honestly, watch me live on Kick, tell these stories live, and also basically tell you guys about how my crazy life is face to face live on the internet. So join me on kick.com/Bubba if you guys want to watch that live. Anyways, other than that, let's just jump straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a crazy story. So today's story takes place back when I was in high school. Well, I mean, of course it does. High school was when me doing the Devil's Tango was like a normal thing. Like, no joke. I think by the end of high school, my body count was already at like 85. But sorry, going on with the story. I remember one time, me and the guys were just walking down the hallway, you know, just doing our dumb shenanigans that we usually do. And I remember we were basically walking around the school talking about people that we would do the Devil's Tango with, and ones that we would never even consider doing. And I remember as we were walking down the hallway, I remember there was one girl that was sitting under a staircase, and she was like major emo. Like seriously emo, to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, she looked like Dracula. Right after we passed by her and started going up the stairs that she was under, I remember my buddy looked at me saying, yo, Bubba, smash her past that chick right there. And I remember I looked at him saying, dude, there is no way I'm going to do an emo chick. I remember he started laughing at me saying, oh, come on, like, what if I give you $100? $100 to do the Devil's Tango. Okay, at that point, I mean, there's no way I'm not gonna try. So I remember afterwards, I ended up basically going down the stairs right after, and I said, hey, like, what you up to? I ended up sitting beside her under the staircase, and I'm not gonna lie, it was really gross under there. Like there was like a spider web, like literally like above us. But anyways, going on, I remember she looked at me saying, what do you want? Oh, nothing. I'm just trying to talk, you know, is what I said to her. She ended up looking at me saying, okay, like you got like a problem or something? Like, what is it? Oh, nothing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just find your bracelet really hot on you. I remember she looked at me as if she wanted to kill me. And then she said, thanks. I got it from like Zoomies. Oh, cool. All right, nice. And then afterwards, I remember I decided to just get this conversation over with and basically pulled out my phone and said, yo, so you got like Snapchat or something? I remember she looked at me and said, you know, the government's like listening to you when like you use Snapchat and stuff. Like you're actually so dumb. Just here, if you want my number, you can take that. Okay, cool, I guess, is what I said afterwards. And I remember I ended up getting her number and I told her I'll text her tonight. And to be honest, she said she had plans and I didn't know what that meant, but I just left anyway. I remember I went back up the stairs and my buddy, when he found out that I actually got this girl's number, he kind of started laughing and freaking out. And then that's when he told me, dude, I'm telling you right now, if you smash that girl, you're insane. Dude, watch me. Of course I'm gonna do the devil's tango. Like it's literally in my DNA to do it. I remember he started laughing and we ended up going into class. And basically throughout the whole school day, I was just thinking in my mind, how in the world am I gonna end up doing the devil's tango with an emo chick? Like what? Anyways, going on with the story, I remember after school came around and basically I got in my car and started driving home. But before I started driving, I remember I decided to go on my phone and basically shoot a message at this emo chick saying, yo, like, what you doing tonight? I remember I got no response for like 2 hours until like 6 o'clock, where I ended up getting a message saying, I'm like going to like visit my uncle. Like, do you want to come with me? Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Now, you got to think this chick's emo. So like, I can't imagine her uncle. Like, I don't really want to imagine her uncle, but like, come on, like you got to admit, it's got to be something freaky. So I remember just for the kick of it, I decided to basically drive down to her house. And when I picked her up, I'm not gonna lie, she lived in a really nice house and her dad drove a Porsche. Like there's something seriously wrong with this chick. Either she's like an outcast in her family or she's adopted, or I don't know, something's off with her. But I remember when she entered my car, she was wearing the same emo outfit from when we left school. So clearly she didn't change nothing. And I remember me and her, we started like basically driving to her uncle's place. She ended up basically giving me like directions of where to go. And she didn't want to put anything down in the GPS because she said her uncle's like a very like secretive thing to her, which makes no sense. Like unless you're doing the devil's tango with your uncle, there's no reason his address should be kept a secret, especially when I'm driving you, but it's whatever. I remember I started driving her and basically as we were on the way there, I remember I asked her saying, so like after your uncle, do you want to like go back to your place? You seem like you have a really nice house. My parents are home, so like I'd rather like just go do it at my uncle's. You want to go do the devil's tango at your uncle's, is what I said afterwards. She started looking at me and started laughing and she's like, don't worry, it's not my first time. And we basically ended up, you know, continue driving. I remember as we were driving, we started passing by like a giant graveyard that was in my city. Like it was a massive graveyard. And right as I see like the turn in for the entrance to the graveyard, she told me to turn in. And that's when I realized that her uncle was dead. Yeah, her uncle was dead. We were gonna go visit a tombstone. Not even her actual uncle. We were visiting a rock that was representing her dead uncle. Sorry, that sounds really disrespectful. And honestly, like rest in peace to her uncle, but like, holy cow, are you serious? Anyways, going on, we were basically turning in and stuff. And I remember I parked the car and she had flowers that she brought that were apparently under her skirt. I don't even know. But basically she pulled out these flowers and we saw her uncle's tombstone. And she basically said, Bubba, this is my uncle. Uncle, this is Bubba. He met me at school today and asked for my number. I think I'm doing something right. I'm not sure. You're talking to a rock. I didn't say that, by the way. I just, you know, mentioned that in my brain. But going on, I remember I started basically kind of just, you know, playing it cool, you know, letting her talk to, you know, her uncle that's dead. And basically, I remember I looked at her saying, yo, like, can I just ask you, like, how did he die? Oh, it was suicide. Oh, okay. That's a really dark turn, is what I said afterwards. And honestly, at that moment, I'm not gonna lie to you, I just wanted to go home. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was even worth doing the devil's tango with this chick. Like, I just did not want to do it. But then afterwards, I remember this girl looked at me and said, okay, Bubba, like, can I like take you somewhere? Yeah, sure. And then she basically ended up kissing her uncle's tombstone goodbye. Like literally kissed the rock, by the way. And then she ended up grabbing my wrist and actually walked me towards these like trees that were nearby. And basically when we got back there, I remember she instantly started taking off all her clothes and bent over. And yeah, that's when we basically did the devil's tango. I remember when we were doing it, in my mind, I was thinking there is no way I'm doing it right now at a graveyard. Like there is no way I am doing it while there's a bunch of dead people literally 6 feet under under me. I felt so uncomfortable, and I remember I just pretended to bust because like there was no way I wanted to see that. And basically one thing led to another. I remember like literally 5 minutes went by, and I basically ended up putting up my pants and saying, okay, I think we should probably head back. You want me to drive you back? Oh no, I usually like to tell my uncle my experiences. I'll just take the bus back. You can like go. You're going to tell your uncle that you just did it at a graveyard. What? I don't know. I felt super weird, and honestly, I did not want to be there any longer than I have to. So I remember I got in my car, I ended up driving back home, and I called my friend and told him all about it. And yeah, I did get $100, but honestly, it wasn't even worth $100. Maybe like $500, I'll do it again. I don't know. But basically, that is it for today's story. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.